Oh, I'm gonna have some sweet dreams. I just need a nap. I'm tired. I'm tired. So much. So much. Yeah. I forgot to make the Let's Talk videos. It's time for a Let's Talk, guys.
Let's talk games, books. Let's talk movie brands. Let's talk stuff.
Alright, so today we're going to be doing Hudson Soft, also known commonly as Hudson, but in Japan it's known by quite a little bit different name. So I'm looking through my script. So basically, Hudson Soft's been around for a long time. It's been around since about 1973. According to the information I found, it was May 18th, but that might not be accurate. So, can't always go by that. But it is accurate enough to know that it's been around since the 70s. It didn't originally start off as like a game company, which is what people know it as now. It actually started off as a pretty much like a radio store founded by Kudo. What's his full name? Hold on. Yeah. Kudo. Yuji and Hiroshi Kudo. I really hope I pronounced those correctly with my limited Japanese ability. Now, the big thing with them is they didn't originally want to open a radio store. They wanted to open up pretty much just like a coffee shop. But the actual building where they were going to be setting it up at, there was already a coffee shop. So they decided to open a radio store. And let me tell you, it did not work out for them. They were constantly in the red with like funding and everything. But around 1975, they started selling personal computers, like home computers, which were more common in other places like Europe and Japan in the 70s and 80s than they were in the United States. Which, I'm in the United States. But it was also before I was born. So, yeah. Shortly after that, they were also starting to sell video games as well. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. Between the late 70s and early 80s, according to my research I have, they started actually approaching marketing of video games. They were going for quantity over quality approach. So, yeah, a lot of really crap games. Pretty much. That's how you can break that down. Sort of like what you would see with like the Atari 2600 and stuff. Now, they continued going and working pretty well. And then in 2001, they pulled the plug on that shop. But at the same time, they had already started doing other things, including like porting games or making their own games or publishing games. One of the notable ones that they actually made, well, quote unquote made, I couldn't tell if they actually made it or just published it, was actually Lode Runner. It was actually for the Nintendo family computer, the Famicom, the Japanese Famicom. That was 1984, so take what you want with that. It got them a start though. They continued making other ports and games for things like the MSX, the ZX Spectrum, or as they call it here in the United States, the ZX Spectrum, and they finally got themselves a hit with Bomberman. That was, I believe, 1985. Yeah. It was a big hit, 1985, released in July. I don't have a specific day in July, so take that with a grain of salt a little bit. Now, at the same time, at 85, they also did some work with Konami. They actually ported over to the MXX and the Famicom the arcade game Puyon. So, I've never played Puyon, so I can't tell you much. What little information I could find is it was actually a pretty popular, fun game, so that's fine. But they also started developing their own stuff, pretty much. In 1987, they developed the C62 system, which that's something we wouldn't know much about here. It was actually the NEC PC engine, which I'm going to include a video right here showing my PC engine. The PC engine originally had the white box. I have the second release one, mind you. And outside of Japan, they released it as the TurboGrafx 16, named such because of the 16-bit graphics processor, though the actual processor in it, the C62, was only a 8-bit processor. So it would have Super Nintendo / Sega Genesis level of actual sprite graphics, but the gameplay and the scrolling and everything was very much Nintendo era 8-bit. So it didn't get a lot of hype over here. They did a weird marketing with the TurboGrafx in the United States. Instead of doing what like Nintendo and stuff did, they would actually only release it in large metropolitan areas. Now, for people like me, I grew up in small country towns, quote unquote small. It's all relative to your opinion on what a small country town is. Legitimately, I never saw it, but they released it in metropolitan areas for about $100. Now, that's a great bargain system, but what isn't really talked about much that I found in my research is they actually originally approached Nintendo with the system ideal about replacing the NES with it, because they found that the graphics processor was more powerful and they thought that it would make the game system look better and people would like the games more. It also would help them with the porting of their own games to the NES. Games such as Bonk and Adventure Island, some of their more well-known games that are on the NES. But Nintendo didn't want it, so instead, Hudson actually went to Nippon Energy Company, NEC, to produce their items. So it was a little bit different, something you don't see much. But they actually released them on cards instead of cartridges. No bigger than a credit card. Like, size-wise thicker, it was a little bit. But they continued to still make games for the Sega, for the Super Nintendo, for the regular Nintendo, as well as the Neo Geo. So, that's cool. This is all based on information I found, mind you. And that was pretty much all started in 1987. But around 1994, they actually developed the HUC62 system, which was a graphics processor and a regular processor chip that was 32-bit. It was labeled as a semiconductor chip. So, I keep looking over, so I'm reading, I apologize. But they ended up using that in their PCFX, which was the replacement for the PC Engine and the PC CD, which there were several variants of. There was the PC Engine like I have with the Core, and then there was Core 2 as well. Then there was the standard CD like I have with the suitcase quote-unquote bomb, as they called it, which was the interface unit. But then they had the Super CD for the Super Graphics and stuff like that. Then after that, they had the all-in-one systems like the Turbo Duo in the United States. It was the PC Engine Duo R and stuff like that overseas. The Super Graphics was actually technically a different system that was backwards compatible, but only about 16 games were made for it. So they decided to put their effort into a new system altogether, which was the PCFX, which both the PC Engine and the PCFX actually have a strong following still. You can actually go on sites and see people still making games for it. They're even releasing them on CDs and Hue cards, which were the name of the cards, were Hue cards, HU. I don't know what that stands for. I couldn't find information. But that was their own business. Now, with Konami and a couple of other companies like Flying Tiger Entertainment, they actually were working with a lot of different games with it. Up until, I would say about 2006. 2006 is when things started really going downhill for Hudson Soft. The veteran Takahashi Maijin, I might have mispronounced that, I'm sorry. He left in 2011, but then you had Shinji Nakamoto, who was around since 1978, that left in 2006. And these were people that were big names. Like, Nakamoto was actually one of the people that helped create the Bomberman series. So, one of their big franchises was gone. And then, around 2010, like late 2010, early 2011, a lot of employees started leaving Hudson Soft to actually go over to Nintendo, because Nintendo reconstructed a program called the Indie Cube Studio, which the reason they had no problem going there also is because it was actually headed by Hidetoshi Endo, which he was a former president of Hudson Soft. So they were working with someone they already knew. Now, this wasn't the big thing that broke the camel's back, because you could always replace people. But the big problem was they started having financial issues, and they actually had to sign off several of their projects they were working on, including a number of games that ended up having to be sold over to, if you remember them, Acclaim. So that kind of ended some of their game process, and that was in 1995. And then you also had the actual normal Hudson Studios, which they purchased the Sapiro division of Konami, and that actually ate up a lot of their money, so they lost money on that. And around 2003, they started developing like mobile games, like the phone Java game service, Game Master, which was created by Flying Tiger for AT&T, and NTT Docomo, which I think that would be a Japanese phone service, not the United States. Might be European, I'm not quite sure. They stopped all operations in general for the Hudson Entertainment division of Hudson Soft on March 31st, 2011. Now, they also had a second division that was a Hudson Music Entertainment. That was a recording label that Hudson forwarded, because Hudson made a lot of different products. They make computer, game systems, music, and from what I understand, they also did work on some entertainment, like with film and television, but that might just be related to commercials that they did. It didn't state specifically, but their recording label was absorbed by KME Corporation, and that was part of the Konami Digital Entertainment. That happened on March 1st, 2012. Now, Hudson Soft USA, the American version of them, they went through two different iterations. There was the one that was pretty well known for like Adventure Island and stuff in the United States, that got absorbed in 1995, and they reopened another version that was just labeled as Hudson Soft in general, and it closed up in 2011, all based on my research. They have a number of games and music and products that were actually released underneath them. The more populars were 1985 Star Force, 1986 Star Soldier, and these are part of the Caravan competition, mind you. 1987 Starship Hector, 1988 Power League, which was also known as a world-class baseball in the United States. Then there was 1989 Gunhead, 1990 Superstar Soldier, 1991 Final Soldier, and 1992 Soldier Blade, which these were all games that were actually pretty popular. These, in their areas, they were released to the point where they actually re-released some of them for game systems like the PCP, not PSP, PSP. My apologies. Yes, we're gonna release games for drugs. But the PSP release of Soldier Blade was actually part of the PC Engine Best Collection, Soldier Collection, which I wish I still had my PSP because I would gladly grab that because that'd be a lot cheaper than buying the PC Engine games. But it got to the point where there were just too much going on for Hudson Soft to continue, and large portions of the company that didn't go over to Nintendo did get absorbed by Konami, at least according to my information, because they wanted to turn Hudson and Konami instead of two separate entities working for the same purpose. They wanted to make them one and just keep them underneath the well-known Konami brand, where Hudson was pretty much only known for a handful of games and PC Engine stuff in the United States. And the PC Engine stuff we're talking about is TurboGrafx 16, one of the more obscure of consoles anymore. Now, do I miss Hudson Soft? Yeah. I miss seeing that little bee everywhere. I miss being able to play some of those old good games. I still actually have my PC Engine. I'm happy with it. And if you've never played a Hudson Soft game, you can pick them up pretty cheap. They're usually pretty well made. But I would just wanted to make a video to pay respects to a good company that was been here for a long time and made a lot of stuff that I liked. So, thank you guys. And remember, always follow your dreams. Peace, peace.